I would love to be able to buy one. I don't want to say that I don't want one. I just want one to be...
You're just a hater.
I know, I'm just a hater. Today on this Dirt Road Cred Jeep Dive, we go into the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. What we currently think is wrong with it, how much we actually do or don't hate the vehicle, and honestly what we think needs to change before we would pick one up. Before we get too far in this video, we wanted to give our own shout out to a new line that we have going out. We've got some more merch on the website. So we've got this DRC alumni style cap. This is a Richardson 112 in black and khaki. This is actually embroidered for us locally here in Hershey, PA. And then we've also got this really nice tactical cap that I've gone on. It's got a mix of gray and some dark greens on there with a flag patch on the side and then full color embroidered. Not only that, we do have some really cool shirts coming too. So if you guys want to support your channel, support your boys here, this is a great way to do so. And as always, we've got the high power floor lights as well available for your Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator. But let's get back into the video. Just wanted to show off these new hats and some new merch that we have. So let's preface this video with the fact that we don't hate 4xe Wranglers. We strongly dislike them. And it's only for a couple reasons. So you guys, there's a lot of people in the comments that are like, oh, Dirt Road Cred. There was even a 4xe Facebook page. It was like, man, Dirt Road Cred guys, they hate 4xes. And they were like, let's meet up at the Starbucks and talk about it. And like, I was like, all right, fellas, like, let's relax a little bit. But we don't hate the 4xes. I want to like this vehicle, but there is a couple things that I needed to do for us to actually like the vehicle and really consider purchasing one. So when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, the 4xe was released in the year 2021. And it wasn't as heavily marketed up here in the Northeast in our section of Pennsylvania. We're in more of a rural agricultural area, and to be honest, a lot of electrical and hybrid vehicles just didn't really seem too common around here. In fact, back then, there weren't even really many chargers that you could use if you had an EV, and our county just didn't really get the picture when it came to that. It was in more affluent areas, more not industrial, more just like city areas that could really see the benefit of a hybrid or a plug-in vehicle. So in 2021, when it was released, I knew that it was there, but I didn't really have a chance to see it. We didn't really have a chance to test drive one. And in fact, for our area, I think the biggest thing is I just didn't see the hype because I would have had to spend a good amount of money to install a charger at my house myself. And there wasn't really the charging capabilities or the network in our area. It came out with impressive torque figures, and it was utilizing a 2.0 liter Hurricane engine backed with that hybrid battery capability for you to either use both the battery in the engine, the battery alone, or the engine on its own. So in reality, that's a pretty cool thing for it to have. It utilized the battery, which actually mounted underneath the rear of the back seat. So if you flip up on a 4xe, the back folds up and the battery is underneath that. I want to say the battery weight was about 400 plus pounds. You guys can correct me if I'm incorrect below, but I do not have one and I'm not able to weigh one. A lot of people made the reference that it was like having two linebackers sitting in the back seat of all time. So you have basically a battery down below, all sorts of the hybrid goodies underneath in the transmission and all that. And then you have a lot more underneath the hood going on because you've got to manage all of this high power. And then also you've got to manage the engine as well. So this thing was pulling incredible torque numbers because of both the hybrid or the battery pack and the electric motor and the current engine. It was close to a 392 at like 470 pound-feet of torque. So arguably a very quick vehicle when that battery was utilized at full potential. And that's one thing when I was able to drive one I was impressed by, is that it had speed, it had power. And I'm not going to get into the negatives right away, but I would say why we didn't initially get interested in one, just because there wasn't a high use factor for us in the area. The infrastructure wasn't around, it really wasn't there, and it's still at its infancy stages. We finally got like a charging point at one of our local Giant, our supermarket.
It was very like early in it.
There was very early.
Much, especially over here. Like I feel like we're always 10 years behind when it comes to technology in this area and restaurants and all that stuff. But it just took a while for them to catch up.
And the infrastructure wasn't there. So like seeing it, the fact that it wasn't heavily marketed to us, the fact that I'd always just gone with gas engines. I had a diesel at the time. I want to say I had a 2021, 2022 diesel. I was going between Gladiators and a diesel Wrangler. And there's just so many other better options for us personally. There was a Hemi, there was a diesel, there was 2.0, there was all these other options. So in the beginning, I think it did take a little bit for it to take hold, but I will say that there has been some reports that say the Jeep Wrangler 4xe is one of the best-selling hybrid automobiles ever. So that's a pretty hard statistic to reach. And I think it's because of the fact that a lot of folks looked at this vehicle as if you had the infrastructure in your area, if you had the charging capabilities, and you had a short commute to work, arguably you could take the top and doors off a hybrid vehicle, have fun with it on the weekends, and then pay nothing with gas back and forth to work. That's pretty cool. I would say that it is really cool. The downsides to them. I think we've all heard about it. The Grand Cherokee 4xEs, the Wrangler 4xEs, were pretty plagued with recalls. There's a couple Instagram followers that talk to us all the time that say they wanted to love the 4xE, they wanted to make it their forever vehicle, but theirs were in those certain years where it was just plagued with recalls. It was constantly in the shop, it was getting software updates. There was actually recalls where Jeep said, do not park these things inside the garage or charge them inside the house because there was that explosion risk for certain. The NHTSA made up those recalls. That's pretty dang scary. You know, like, and I know it's a possibility with all of these vehicles, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at this as a potential vehicle that you're going to use all the time, that I'm going to put both of my car seats above that rear battery, it starts to play a factor into it. Do I want it also in the shop all the time? It's funny I bring this up because just this morning, the backup camera on my wife's brand new Ram Rebel went off. It stopped working. And I thought to myself, how am I going to get this thing in for service? That's the only one with our car seats in it. How do I manage that? So for someone that lives with kids or has other responsibilities, your vehicle can't constantly be in the shop. You need it. You need a vehicle with car seats in it. You need a vehicle to transport you back and forth to work. And I think that was another thing that we looked at, was just we couldn't get a vehicle that was having these recalls and being in the shop a lot of the time versus getting just a standard gasoline engine. It was basically a pro and con. And like the pro was you could run on strictly electric, you could get around, but for us, most of our commuting was 30 plus miles, and the range, I want to say on a good day, was like 21, 22 miles of all electric. So that wasn't enough for us to justify the weight of the battery, the recall issues, the cost, because the 4xEs, if you remember when they were released, they were more expensive than the regular Wranglers. So all of that added up into it is why we ultimately decided not to get one. I want to say for those folks that have picked one of these up and gone over 100,000 miles with no recalls, no issues, and been loving and using this thing, I want to ask you guys to start talking about that down below in the comments. What were your why buys for that? Why did you pick a 4xE over a regular Wrangler? Did you want the freedom mixed with the availability to use a hybrid? Did you have a short commute or an infrastructure around your area that was more set up? Why did you pick one of those over a regular Wrangler? Did you come from a different hybrid, which was like, most of them were dorky back in the day? I want to say that. Like, a lot of the hybrids were like, okay, yeah, they had all the memes with the Priuses back in the day.
Yeah. Now that we're 5 years in, it's interesting to hear some of the feedback from people that actually have had it.
Yeah,
and if they have the ones that are lasting.
And people have loved these things. I've heard awesome things. You know, if you say you have a 10-mile commute to work, go all electric, go to work, charge at work. We didn't have that in the area. You couldn't go to work and charge. You were charging at home, so you had to factor that cost into it, the cost of a charging station. So let us know down below in the comments, because like I said, that was our reasons why we never got one, but that is very subjective to your personal use as well as the infrastructure, the place you live, your lifestyle, etc. For us, with the recalls, with the this, that, and the other going on, with having kids, it made an impact with it.
Do not touch. I'm touching.
But I guess 5 years later, what has really changed? I mean, it's got the updated interior now in the 24 and 25. It's got the side curtain airbags. From what you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, once again, I have not heard of the battery change at all. Like, there hasn't been a battery change. There's still the 2-liter Hurricane underneath the hood. That all seems to be the same. Not really any major changes with that. So still the same range, still the same power output.
And the ranges.
The ranges, yeah, it's low, but I guess how much range can you get out of it?
But didn't it have that, like, when you brake?
Yeah, so it's regenerative braking, yeah. So regenerative braking is actually when the motor, if I'm not mistaken too, the coils spins in the opposite direction. It actually generates power to recharge. That's pretty neat because it saves your brakes. So you're not applying as much brake pressure. It's just slowing down automatically, charging your battery at the same time. So that's actually some pretty cool stuff. That has been around since the beginning of those, but they did add that charging capability where you could plug something into the outlet port and have a 4-outlet block where you could run your camping gear. Now that brought me on to, like, if we're going to start talking about what would it take for us to buy one, that was pretty cool. That's starting to think like, hey, you know what, these are off-road, these are outdoorsy guys and gals buying these things. Why don't we start catering to that a little bit more? Why don't we make something that can not only be used to get you around and cruise around in the off-road quiet mode, because I've taken one out kind of a little bit on a trail in the quiet mode in just pure electric. It's actually relaxing to wheel in pure high. Yeah, I've taken one out. Yeah, I've taken one out before. It was on like a back road, but it was like dead quiet. And a lot of people say that when they go out and they wheel like that, purely wheel. I didn't wheel with it, but you hear everything.
I don't remember you taking a 4x8.
Oh yeah,
back in your day.
Yeah,
when
back in the day.
You were an early 4x8.
Yeah, I was an early 4x8 adopter. But either way, they say when they go out in those, it's extremely quiet underneath, so you're not hearing anything. That's a pretty cool way to wheel. You're not hearing the engine rev up. You're more quiet. You can hear the nature. You can also hear all the metal parts that you're scraping underneath and your skid plates. And yeah, it sounds great. So let's turn this engine back on so we don't hear that. But there are some pros to that. And I want to say that as we get into, let's start getting into what it would take for us to purchase one. I think that's going to be my first talking point. And something that we haven't seen yet for the 2025 model year that was talked about was the active cabin ventilation system. So that was rumored to come out with the 2025, and it was supposed to be an app-based function where you could actually fire it up and it would start either cooling or heating your cabin without you being into it. That would be pretty cool. The last week here in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey, we were at the beach. It was like 110 degrees with the humidity. It was absolutely insanity. It'd be pretty nice to go on the app and say, hey, I'm going to be at my Jeep in 20 minutes. Can you maybe start cooling this thing down? If you have the top and doors on. Now, this was supposed to come out, and what I think they're waiting on is the availability for them to put either a new higher charge battery, some more amp hours in the battery, or a different sort of system where you could utilize that battery power and keep the cabin cool or hot, much like a Tesla does in the pet mode, because you can actually go in the store and let your Tesla run on the AC and the heat in pet mode and keep the whole thing cool or hot, depending on what you need. I think that they need to do something like that for the 4xe to give it more features for an off-roader or someone with more of, I would say, more of a diverse lifestyle. Is that what I'm trying to say, Ryan? Like, I have kids, we have pets, you have a more outdoor lifestyle. Like, you got to kind of try and hit all of those instead of just, oh, this is going to get you better fuel economy, because that's not enough anymore. But it brought me up to a point is what I would like to see. I would like to see a higher amperage hour battery, something a little bit more capable on there. But maybe a lighter, but that's always a lighter, faster, stronger, more durable battery, and make it cheaper too.
I don't know, they should in phones. I mean, now vehicles are very early.
Yeah.
I think phones, they've significantly shrunk batteries to make.
And still gotten, yeah. So I think they could, but I think the cost might go up. Yeah. But what I would love to see that with a bigger battery is the availability for, we just brought this up, to be able to like go camping in your Jeep Wrangler and leave the heater AC on with the battery powering it overnight.
Yeah, without running it.
I think how cool would that be? Because most campsites, like if you guys go camping, you go to campgrounds, they have larger 3-prong or 4-prong hookups for your camper that you could charge your Jeep overnight, let the AC run, and just boondock out of the back.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
I think honestly that would probably be a big enough selling feature for me just to be like, yeah, I can camp out of this thing anywhere I need to go, run on the battery, and then in the morning when I'm ready to leave, just fire up the gas engine. Even if you're in the middle of the woods or something, you just want to spend the night there, okay, let's just let the battery run, turn the heat on, turn the AC on, it'll run all night, no problem, and then I'll just fire up the Jeep in the morning and we can roll out. Yeah. That, I think, would be such a cool feature, and I think it's only possible with a bigger amp-hour battery and with Jeep to kind of go out of the box and think of things like that. I think they're on the right track with also that bigger... I think, personally, we need to see a bigger battery. This is what comes down to, the range. The range would be... Okay, so that's one feature that I brought up, like being able to camp out of it, let the heat and AC run all night. What do you need to see out of the range?
75.
75 miles of pure electric.
75 pure electric.
That would get us a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And now that the infrastructure is there.
Right, now you can charge it at work, because that's it. Or Giant, go to Giant.
Yeah, go to Giant. I mean, most dealerships now, all Stellantis dealers basically have chargers there.
Are there like free charging stations at certain areas too? I feel like
it depends on what you call free. I mean, I used to be called the power pirate because I would steal power.
But you're charged at Giant, aren't you? If you plug
I think it costs money. It costs money at Giant, but it's like still cheaper than.
I think there are like universal plugs though in like parks or some places they'll give you a little bit of.
Or you just pull up to like if you see like a business that has like a charger there, and you just, and.
Yeah.
plug it in. But a lot of like some of the sports stadiums and stuff have the chargers there.
That's what I'm saying. I think
hotels, a lot of hotels do. I don't know if they charge you. You guys let us know down below if they charge you or not. But I mean, I'll give it the caveat of that is like the range anxiety isn't really as existent with a 4xe because you still have the gas engine, which is nice. You can still get around. But and you guys might not know this, I had a Mach-E. I had a Mustang Mach-E during the peak period of owning an electric vehicle when you could absolutely profit off of these things. I actually had to drive up to Syracuse or Buffalo, New York. I forget where it was. And I bought a Mach-E, drove it back. Now that is over 250 miles, and that was the range of my Mach-E. There is a point where you start sweating bullets because if you don't have a place to charge this thing, where are you going? And the second problem is I I pulled in to charge the first time, and it was like a crowd of all the hybrid or all the fully electric guys there, and they were saying, oh yeah, that one's not working and that one's not working. So there was like places where the chargers, like it'll show you on a map it's there, and if you bank on that one and it's not there or it's out of service, now what?
I guess I want to know, like, now, how do people go about doing it? Like, is it...
I think in the 4xe, I would venture to say that, like, you don't need to focus on it as much because you have an engine. But, like, on a pure electric vehicle, like, the Mach-E, like, mapped out your next stop. So does Tesla. It'll, like, map out your mileage and be like, okay, you're going to stop here for 30 minutes and charge. With the 4xe, you don't need to stop and charge, but you are going to reduce your range. So I would say that it probably factors in when you're spending staying overnight somewhere, a hotel that might have one, because then you can charge overnight and then get more range out of it. But I would agree with your 75 number. I don't think that would be out of perspective. We're at like, I think it was like 27, 26?
26, 27.
On a hot summer day. Because you got to remember, in the winter, your battery, just like in the full electric, goes down. So
but also the charging speed. I don't know, because I still don't know. I don't know. Like, do you have to wait 30 minutes?
So you have like level 1, level 2, level 3 charging. Level 1 is most commonly like a 110 outlet in your house.
And what does the 4xe have?
Level 2. It goes up to level 2. The fastest you can get is level 3, which is most of your Teslas, your Ford Lightnings, your bigger electric vehicles.
We'll have a level 3.
They were talking about it. Level 3 would be fast charging, and then if the battery is not that big, it would probably be pretty quick. If the battery is not as big as a full-on Tesla battery, which is the whole vehicle is powered by a battery, if it's a smaller one, it probably charges pretty quick. So maybe you could stop at a gas station, fill up your fuel, charge the battery for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and what if you get 50% charge? At least it's going to help you.
Right.
So I would say more battery capacity, faster charging would be bigger for me. I really can't keep going back on that AC and heat. I think that would be such a cool feature. I think for camping, overlanding, all that stuff would be really fun. But probably the biggest elephant in the room is the recalls and the problems that they were having with the 4xEs. I mean, we've had videos of like,
explosion.
I just saw one that like it like burst into flames, and they threw like this specialized like water cannon in it to make sure it was completely out, and they let it run for like an hour. But that's what happens with electric fires. Electric battery fires, when they happen in Teslas, when they happen in things, they are very hard to extinguish. They're very hard to put out. If you guys have ever had a battery catch fire, it's not good. Like even a little AA battery or one of these lithium batteries, you puncture it, it goes nuts. So I think the recalls, getting this thing to be just extra safe, the extra range, all that stuff, just really work it out. Maybe they were working more out. Maybe that's why we didn't see it for a 2025 model year.
Yeah, well, yeah, they wanted to iron out some of the bugs, maybe, and maybe they're still dealing with the recalls. So they're obviously still dealing with the recalls, but
they are.
But selling them right now, they're not really on lots around here.
No, they used to be heavy because a few years back, if they changed the rules, if you had a Jeep dealership, you could only advertise and sell the hybrid version as a stocked unit, and you could order in all the other versions. And they were doing that to like rural areas like this. How bad do you think that hurt the dealerships? In a rural area like this, to only have 4xEs out front, and I've talked to a lot of dealers, still down at Sands, they have a 2023 high velocity Sahara 4xe. It's been sitting there since, it's brand new.
Yeah.
So how did this hurt dealerships? I think it forced their hand to like, you need to be able to only sell these. And it hurt a lot of customers. So they wanted to walk in. They weren't familiar with it. They didn't understand it. And they ultimately didn't really want it. And that's all they had. So now that we're getting back to the crown changing a little bit and who's in charge of Jeep and the availability of keeping them in stock of other models, having the 4xe in stock as well, I think we're going to start to see some changes. And I think that that's what we need to see, is that the upgraded battery range, faster charging, and some more perks interior, or ways to use the battery. I would say you have this like really cool battery there. How else can we use this thing? I think that would be what I would say. Using it as a camp outlet, beautiful idea. I love that. Having some outlet ports, being able to charge the camera, charge your laptop, run a TV on it while you're tailgating, have more features or more availability to use that battery system that you have there. I think that's a fantastic idea. And just being able to utilize it more safely, having that battery be fully vetted, no recalls going on, and that's impossible to say. You're always going to have some sort of computer update, but that's what we need to see. And I would also say that one really cool optimistic thing I would say would be like a gasoline powered generator, like have the front engine just powering a charger. So basically it would be like a gasoline generator or a diesel generator. All that gas engine would do under the hood would charge the battery. So it could just idle up, ramp up when you need more power, lower down when you don't need power, but then you could stop at gas stations and you could recharge. Well, because it's also a shame, like you see like Ford Bronco over in Japan or China, the Bronco Sport is getting exactly that, a gas generator that, and I think the range was like, what was 730 miles out of it? Just stupid mileage. It doesn't. Imagine having that in like even a Cherokee. Like why didn't they do that in the new Cherokee or something like that? We're just hurting here because I think technology and innovation is not being rewarded. I would say that for the price point, it's not being rewarded. And then also like there's a lot of people with way more money invested in stocks that say, no, you're not going to cut the oil industry like that. I think that's what's kind of going on too. But yeah, either way, I think that's what we would need to see for the 4xe to make sense for our lifestyle.
What kind of price range would you need it to be at? Especially now, they have it down into the Sport now, right?
Yeah, the Sport 4xe, I'm going to say is like 56.
See that?
And also the federal EV tax credit is going away. So that $7,500 is gone, I think, end of September, end of August. So that used to be the big perk of buying like a Mach-E for myself. I got that federal tax credit. I could flip it, make some money. But now if that federal tax credit goes away.
I hate the fact that you got to get a Sport for 56.
Yeah.
I wish there was a one trim all for the 4xe. Like you give it... I don't even give it a Rubicon.
How many people are wheeling? I know some people on Instagram have the Rubicon 4xes, but how many people are legitimately doing that? I would do it if it had a cool trim, bigger axles, throw the Rubicon hood under it, maybe just make a Rubicon. Yeah. Or just make a, I don't know.
Or a special, like a Mojave trim. Like
Mojave is for the Gladiator.
Mojave is specific to Gladiator, right? So
maybe it could be like the Overland edition or something.
Just make a 4xe like standard edition.
Yeah, and make it loaded up with some cool features.
And then you have one. Then you can just focus on one, but they're just trying to get more profit from them. So.
Right. Let's add on some fender flares and a locker, and now it's a Rubicon 4xe with basically the same guts underneath and a little bit of an interior change. So I think price point wise, with that EV incentive going away, it's got to be in the 50s. It's got to be in the 50s for someone to take advantage with a longer range and some of those perks that we said. I would love to be able to buy one. I don't want to say that I don't want one. I just want one to be...
You're just a hater.
I know, I'm just a hater. Everyone says that. But, I've owned every single engine that Jeep's done besides a 4xe. I would love to be able to say, hey, we've owned one of those for a while, tried it out. And who knows, maybe I'll find a leftover 24 or 25 they're like 35 grand used. They like tanked in the used market. So...
But now that we're 5 years in,
yeah,
I want to know, have batteries been going dry?
What's the life? What's the charge capacity of them? Because Tesla and Ford and all them typically warranty their batteries to like an 80%. So if you can go 300 miles, if it's 80% capacity, you'll go 240. So they say in like 10 years it should drop like 20% capacity. So how has the Wrangler been holding up? Maybe you guys can let us know if you have a 4xe. Has yours been holding up? Are you still getting that same range? And what does that look like? Yeah. I heard that Dodge Charger, the Daytona or whatever, that battery pack is like $28,000-$30,000.
Why would you?
But then that's I'm so waste conscious though. Like the whole car is just a paperweight then without that battery. And then also where do you recycle the battery? Because you can't. So yeah, let us know down below in the comments if you guys have a 4xe from like that 2021. Are you still getting the same range? Have you had to do a battery replacement? What's the warranty on the batteries? What's the warranty on the hybrid? Normally it was like...
It was 5 years.
I think it was 8 years. I thought it was 8 year, 100,000 miles. I could be wrong. How many vehicles are we going to still see on the road? That's my hardest point is like, are we going to see these 15 years later? I still drive a 96 Ram 2500 that's still on the road, knocks a little bit, sometimes doesn't want to start right, but it's still running and driving. Are we going to see these 30 years later?
Yeah.
Are we? You know, that's my biggest fear. They going to become paperweights that nobody does anything with them, and then, or they start Hellcat swapping all of them, rip the batteries out and be done with it. But I guess the biggest thing is also for you guys is what would you like to see either as a current 4xe owner or someone that would be optimistic to look into one? What would push you past that? I don't want this thing. I don't want a hybrid in my life. I'm not comfortable with it. What would push you past it? Were the ideas that we had? Would it be more power? Would it be like a 3.0 liter Hurricane instead of a 2.0 liter? What would it be? I think that's what it comes down to, because I think we've discussed today what we would personally like to see. And then
is people just assume we hate electric. We just don't.
I owned a Mach-E. I love that vehicle. If I had the infrastructure now, back then that was 4 years ago.
I had a Kia Niro that absolutely took a dump on me.
Absolutely got, yeah. But it's like, that's the fear of buying a used one too, is like picking up a 21 4xe. Will it have like any warranty left? And then if it goes, like, I mean, you saw when this thing broke down on the side of the road, you're like helpless. So that's the scary part, I guess. Like, and I don't mind electric. I think electricity is great. I just think we're in like still the building stages of that. We're probably at the beginning of the internal combustion engine where they had to really figure things out. You know, they have all these, if you guys go to these old like John Deere and tractor places, the hit and miss engines where it's like ta-ta, 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 and those engines are running. Like, that was the beginning of that. Like, we're learning all this stuff about electric, and especially in a vehicle that hasn't really been done. I mean, you could argue, though, that it has been done. I think Henry Ford's wife actually owned one of the first electric cars, and she loved it. That's how long electric cars have been around.
What was that model?
I have no idea what it was named. And I could quick search it on the phone here, but I know that Henry Ford, his wife, drove, I think it was a Packard. I forget what the name of it was, but it was an electric vehicle. And it would get like 40 miles of range or something back then. How do we not get more than that? But I don't know. I do enjoy sitting here talking about some of this type of content with you guys. And what I want to hear down below is all those questions that we've asked is, what do you think the 4xe needs to do to make it a viable contender for you in the off-road, or just in dailying and just your daily driving? What does it need to be for you? And if you guys have any other further ideas of what you would like us to discuss on what does a Gladiator need, or what does a Wrangler need, what do these vehicles need to really make it a contender for you, let us know down below in the comments, because we do enjoy sitting here talking like this, because it's just like we're in the shop chatting with you guys and just talking about vehicles in general. So I hope you guys got a good bit out of this one. I hope you guys learned the fact that too, we don't hate 4xes, we just want them to be better. It's like, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed, you know, kind of thing. Sometimes it stings a little bit worse too. So either way, let us know down below in the comments. And until next time, my name's Matt, Ryan's behind the camera, and we want you to get out there and earn yours.